Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:07. It's O'Connor and Company. This is our fourth hour. We started at 5 a.m. And if you missed any of the show up until now, I get it. I mean, not everybody wakes up that early. Subscribe to the podcast. Whether you get it from Apple or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you like your podcast delivered, you can get O'Connor and Company automatically to your device so you never miss anything from this show. And you're not going to want to miss today's show. It's been great so far. Our guest host today, Alex Swoyer, Washington Times editor-at-large, author of Lawless Lawfare, Tipping the Scales of Justice to Get Trump and Destroy MAGA. Thank you for bringing your Texas sensibilities to our D.C. proceedings.
I try. I just wish I could bring the Texas warmth, right?
Oh, tell me about it. That's all right. We're almost through February. That means that the spring will be here soon. Right?
I'm looking forward to it.
Jody gets right now always brings warmth to the conversation. She, of course, the former Deputy National Security Advisor for President Trump, author of the book Revolution that chronicles her time there. And she knows her way around impossible peace negotiations since she saw so many of them firsthand at the side of Henry Kissinger and Ronald Reagan. She, of course, the one and only KT McFarland. Good morning, KT. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Now, I raise your experience as being sort of witness to what often is considered an impossible situation, whether it's, Mao's China or Cambodia or, Reykjavik and the fall of the Soviet Union. Can you explain why Mr. Kushner and Mr. Witkoff are even sitting down and talking to the Iranian regime? We do not negotiate with terrorists. They cannot be trusted, and President Trump knows that. He ridiculed what Obama and John Kerry tried to do with Iran. So what is this going on here? And by the way, while it's going on, we've got our arsenal of two major Navy carrier groups motoring their way right to the Persian Gulf.
Well, I think you answered your own question. I mean, what's the difference? We're negotiating with Iran. Look, we negotiate with anybody. We talk to anybody. But at the same time, we've got the largest armada, focused its gun barrels down on Iran while we're negotiating. So it's like negotiating with somebody where you get your hands wrapped around their neck. So you have a lot of leverage there. Right now, President Trump has all the options. He could have a military strike. He could have a limited military strike. He could have Israel do the dirty work at first and then swoop in later, like he did with the 12-day war and bombing Iran's nuclear sites. There are a lot of military options, but there also is the biggest one is the economic option. Iran's economy is crumbling from within. Tehran is running out of water, for all things, and oil. So the longer this goes on, this is not playing. Time is not on Iran's side. The longer this crisis goes on, the more desperate the Iranian people become, and the more likely you have change from within.
Well, let me go back one step then, because whether it's through this process in Geneva with Mr. Witkoff and Kushner, or whether it's with the carrier group Lincoln and Ford doing their job, what is the end result that the U.S. is hoping to achieve here?
All right, look at the examples that we have so far of Venezuela. What happened there? Decapitated the regime, right? Took out Maduro, but then made a deal with the next tier of leaders. And that seems to be working pretty well. I mean, the oil has started flowing. We're having good relations with Venezuela. They've let out the political prisoners. Then look at the second example, Cuba. Well, we're not sure where this ends up, but according to very reliable press reports, Marco Rubio is negotiating with one of the senior leaders of Cuba right now of what a transition might look like. And so if you're in Iran, look, the mullah, you're right. The mullahs, they can't wait to get to paradise. So they'll go down as martyrs. They're not going to negotiate in good faith for anything. But who else is in Iran? Well, there's the Revolutionary Guard. And those are the guys really running things. They run the internal and external security. They own the defense industrial complex. Is anybody talking to them? What is likely to be a transition? President Trump has learned two very important lessons in looking at the last 20 years. Number one, the Bush doctrine of decapitate the entire government and get rid of anybody who ever had a job in the government and then have to run it yourselves. That failed, obviously, hugely in Afghanistan and Iraq. And then the second example of failure is Barack Obama, where he toppled the dictator and then walked away, hoping that democracy would ensue. And in fact, it did not. It gave rise to radical extremism.
This is Alex here. I have a quick question. One of the things I saw today, I think the Daily Mail has it, that it looks like an insider from the administration is talking to press, said the administration is the closest it has ever been to launching a major war against Iran. We're talking about Trump apparently summoning some of his top advisors for a briefing yesterday at the White House. It's polling. I don't know if we always believe polls, but it seems overwhelming that Americans don't want to get in a direct war with Iran. Is that something to take a factor here and maybe I think you mentioned letting Israel kind of do the first strike. Does that soften public opinion? Or, what are we to make of this? The polling that we get versus the actual reports, it seems like the president is moving forward.
Well, I've been in the Situation Room with President Trump during the first term when he's contemplated military action. And he is a reluctant but not afraid warrior. If he will be asking the question, and he will be asking, not the guys all around, he asks the questions where he will say, okay, what happens if this doesn't work? What's the downside risk? What could go wrong here? And he expects good answers. And then once he's got to the place where he thinks it's a risk worth taking, then I think he will make a military decision. But military is only one part of this. That's what everybody's focused on because that's the sort of, picture that you all see, right? The armada surrounding the region. But there's the oil part of it. What happens if the Strait of Hormuz is stopped transiting? So where goes the oil that normally transits there? The other is the economic. What happens to Iran if their currency is now, I think they've got like 75% inflation rates. So what happens to that? What happens to the Revolutionary Guard? They're not the zealots. The Revolutionary Guard may decide they're going to cut a deal, or maybe the second tier of the Revolutionary Guard. I thought it was very interesting, Alex, that a few days ago, they've changed their rules of engagement so that the Revolutionary Guard doesn't have to make decisions at the top that everybody follows. They've now dispersed authority for decision-making at more local units. What happens if a local commander decides, I don't want to go down with the mullahs, I'm going to cut my deal, I'm not going to fight against America? So there's so many unknowns right now, and that's what President Trump's getting briefed on.
Exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi has been making quite a bit of noise on the international scene. He appeared in Egypt. He's been traveling all over. He met with President Trump in Mar-a-Lago, and you did hear his name and the flag of his father's regime in Iran waved in the streets of Tehran during all of those protests a couple of weeks back. Could he be that unifying, moderating figure that could come in and sort of send a signal to the rest of the region that things have changed?
Well, that's more or less what we did in Afghanistan, right, where we had Karzai come in. He was very well known in the West. He spoke English beautifully, but he hadn't been in Afghanistan for a really long time. So, what I think President Trump said about Pahlavi, that he's a nice guy, and they've got a great plan. If you go to his website, you see the sort of step-by-step how they would reorganize the government. But on the other hand, he doesn't have any relationships with the current elites and leadership group in the country. This is something that's happening behind closed doors. And so all of us who are yammering around about it, we don't really know. We just know President Trump and the team, and we're assuming that they're having those conversations, that they're briefing themselves on what a military operation looks like. They're looking at the whole maximum pressure, economic, military, political, diplomatic, energy, and then they'll make their decision. But I don't think he's near a decision point yet.
Well, on that, just to follow up, one of the things I thought was very interesting there is in the past when we've seen these kind of protests on the streets break out, we haven't seen, a name to replace. Is this the first time, or am I wrong, that it does seem like there are some on the ground calling for, no, this is who we want? Does that make this different?
Well, it makes it different because we're noticing that at Pahlavi, that's a name we know about the Shah, but are there people in the leadership group around the mullahs? Are there some clerics who may want to be, quote, the reformers? We've been talking about Iranian reformer leaders for, since the 70s. Are there any of them? But the one example I always look to now is Venezuela. Who would have thought that Donald Trump could make a deal with a vice president of Venezuela to basically do our bidding? And that's what's happened now.
All right, KT. Listen, if you had to put money on it, do you think we're going to see something move here, either at the negotiation table or militarily in the next week?
I would put 40% chance. The one thing I will put a chance on of not happening is while they're convening the Board of Peace in Washington, I don't think they're going to take a military action against
That's a fair
Iran.
bet. And that's happening today, as we've heard from our traffic reports. All right, KT McFarland, always an enlightening conversation. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is 8:16. Alex Swoyer, my generation grew up with good music, and we had Joshua Tree. We had some good U2 stuff coming out there. The Streets Have No Name, a great song. It's about heaven, by the way. He used to sing about Christianity and heaven and major issues that affect our lives. Now
times
Bono,
have changed.
Yeah, he's basically Bruce Springsteen with an Irish accent. It's rough, man. He's got a brand new preachy song out here to lecture all of us.
You can't listen to music or watch sports these days without getting some sort of political message, right?
Yeah. And God bless him. I mean, again, I respect his Christianity, and I know that his old stuff, the lyrics were powerful, and they speak to my faith and some of the larger issues that we deal with. But now on a new album called Days of Ash, released on Ash Wednesday, that's pretty on the nose there, Bono. The song, it's an anti-ICE tribute song for Renee Good. Yeah, all right. The guitar sounds fine. There you go. Again, like I said, really on the nose. 7th day of January, 9:30 in Minneapolis. Renee, the domestic terrorist. All right, fine. Fine. Again, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and he's a talented guy.
Well, they're entitled to their opinion, but what about not telling the truth?
Thank you.
You know,
they're not
what was it?
entitled to
I love
facts.
what one of my favorite things just yesterday in the news was when this is Whoopi Goldberg was in the Epstein files or whatever her name was,
Yeah.
and then she had to go defend herself, and she said, "This is my favorite quote, right from The View."
Mm-hmm.
You used to have facts before you could say stuff. Well, I mean, how ironic is that? But that's
At
kind
that
of
table?
that applies right here. Well, right.
Yeah.
That's why it's funny. But that applies here with the lyrics. I mean, calling the administration lies. You started out with giving kind of the right to, the Miranda rights. Like she was being ordered out of her vehicle. I mean,
That's right.
Where's that lyric?
You don't have the right to disobey a lawful order from constitutionally protected law enforcement
Or to use your
officer or
vehicle as a
agent.
deadly weapon against a federal law enforcement officer.
But again, I get it. You know what would be really amazing? If Bono wrote a song about the victims of rape and murder at the hands of illegal immigrants in this country.
Or the child rapists that
for
this
a moment.
Right. Like he references Renee Good as a mother, I think, was one of the things. That's one of the things that gets me is these moms that are out there protesting ICE. How many times have we heard about the ICE agents going in to arrest child predators? I mean,
Right.
that was one of my favorite moments in this whole the saga coming out of Minneapolis and Minnesota was when that one agent was caught on camera saying, "What are you guys doing? We're trying to get a child predator."
Right. Yeah. And listen, I'm loath to speak ill of the dead, okay? But at the same time, we need to bring facts to the table. You're right. Renee Good was a mother. And you're right. She just dropped her child off at daycare. Not to go get a job, not to go to work. She dropped her child off with strangers at a daycare to raise her own child so she could go and protest and get in the way of and menace an ICE agent with her automobile. You want to call her Mother of the Year? Go right ahead. It's 8:23.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:37. Coming up in 30 minutes, Chris Plant takes over. Are you ready for that, Alex Swoyer? I know that you're used to being on Newsmax with him, but he's a different animal when he's on radio.
Oh, boy. Well, maybe I'll get to say hi. I should see him tonight, though, for the Right Squad. So
He'll be barging into the studio momentarily. Just get ready for it. Meanwhile, let's give you an update on the POO-TOMAC. That would be the Potomac River flooded with raw sewage. But we continue to hear that everything's under control. First of all, let's examine how we got here and who's in charge. The current chief executive officer and general manager of DC Water is one David L. Gaddis, Gaddis. Before this job, he held a position with a company called Veolia North America. They were hired to be consultants to the city of Flint, Michigan, and were named in a class action lawsuit with Mr. Gaddis specifically named in that class action lawsuit for deceiving the people of Flint about the lead components in their water. Now, this was settled for nearly $80 million, but in the lawsuit, it is alleged that Mr. Gaddis participated in multiple emails within the company acknowledging that there is a danger of lead, but then when he made public statements to the Flint City Council as well to the general public, he downplayed anything, in fact, never mentioned any danger of lead. Said, oh, yeah, any discoloration you're seeing, that's coming from, some old cast iron pipes and things like that. He is now in charge of DC Water and has been so since 2018. That's
one example where you fall up, I guess, right?
I suppose. I don't know. If I'm hiring anybody for the city
you're
water
going to
supply,
Flint? That's where you're going to pick them.
If the word Flint, Michigan shows up in your resume in any sort of capacity, I don't think you're going to get the gig.
Well, only here. Only in your nation's capital.
In D.C. Well, and then you wonder, okay, well, what's that all about? Well, listen to this. The chair of D.C. Water, Morris Hughes, Unique Morris Hughes, she engaged in an interview about D.C. Water and about what really happened here in terms of the personnel who were in charge of the water supply in the District of Columbia. Here, take a listen to this from a podcast.
Now, and this is the chain breaking, institutional barrier disruption work that I'm doing. Now I'm on a mission to make sure Black and brown kids have experience in the workplace. So then when they're competing in the market,
that's one less check.
That's one less check. And the playing field is leveled because now they got the internship, the same one for the parent who knew the president of the corporation. Now the playing field is level.
There you go. Do you see a trend here? Well, you're right if you think that there's been a whole lot of DEI focused as the priority at DC Water instead of actual expertise and excellence. Here is the aforementioned David Gaddis, formerly of Flint, Michigan's water success, speaking about what was really wrong with DC Water. Of course, this predates the sewage dump, Cut 16.
When I arrived at DC Water, this was an organization that looked very similar to our industry. It was predominantly, white male at the top, but this was a utility that's, more than 70% people of color work at this utility. And I really believe, and I still believe, and it has been fantastic. The outcomes have been fantastic, but the people at the top, the executives, the chiefs in that C-suite, they should look like the employees that they serve and that they work with, and the same thing with the community. And so my executive team, looks exactly like the community. It looks like the employees. The
absolutely,
staff.
They all, and that's fabulous. Good for you, and I hope it makes you feel better. Here's the funny thing: whether you're white or brown or black or Asian or what have you, when you go swimming in the Potomac right now, you all end up looking the same. You're all covered with poop.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that when I think about my water, I'd like the best of the best to be processing that, not necessarily needing to be reflecting my neighborhood, right? I need it to be the best of the best based on merit. I guess the quote, too many white men or the executives needing to reflect the city. Well, congratulations. You just had the largest sewage spill in U.S. history, right? That's what you got.
Here's my prediction. Eventually, years from now, when there's no political fallout and no one will pay a price, years from now, we will learn that this sewage spill was a result of incompetence. This sewage spill was the result of, they are doing work on this very line about 1,000 feet up, what's the word for it? Upstream, I guess, from where the spill took place. You will never convince me that their incompetence and some mistakes led to this spill that we've got. Meanwhile, over in Fairfax County, the government right now is having their own major regional sewer line problem that carries wastewater from Fairfax County. It's now undergoing emergency repairs because residents are putting too many wipes in their toilets and flushing wipes. Please stop doing that. It is 8:43.